Shalom everyone! Parashat Vayechi and the completion of Sefer B'reishit, Tafshin Pei Vav. What we're presenting today is based on points that I gathered from about 10 different commentators. However, in order to keep things short, I'll share the content without specifying who said what. And all the points will come together to form a unified and coherent picture. Let's begin. Where are the children of Israel, Bnei Yisrael, the children of Yaakov, at the end of Sefer B'reishit? To answer this question fully, we'll start with Parashat Vayechi. In Parashat Vayechi, when Hashem tells Yaakov to go down to Mitzrayim, he says the following: "Do not be afraid to go down to Mitzrayim, for I will make you a great nation there. I myself will go down with you, and I myself will bring you up again." When Hashem says to Yaakov, "Do not be afraid," it's a clear indication that Yaakov is afraid. And Hashem reassures him, "Do not be afraid." Of course Yaakov was afraid. He feared that his children might remain in Mitzrayim permanently, and the entire mission of Am Yisrael will be forgotten. So Hashem says to Yaakov, "Go down to Mitzrayim, I will make you a great nation there, but also I will bring you up again." But Yaakov cannot leave everything solely in the hands of Hashem. A person must do their part to fulfill what Hashem promises. That's why it makes perfect sense that before Yaakov dies in Mitzrayim, he gives clear instructions to bring him to burial in Me'arat HaMachpelah, back in Eretz Yisrael. After Yaakov's death, Yosef turns to Paro and says, "My father made me swear, saying that I should bring him to burial in Eretz Yisrael." And Paro replies, "Go and bury your father as he made you swear." But something here is strange. Yosef is second only to Paro. Yet the Psukim say, Yosef spoke to Paro's household, saying, "I have found favor in your eyes. Please speak in Paro's ears, saying, 'My father made me swear to bury him in Eretz Canaan.'" Isn't this odd? Yosef has to send a request to the king through officials or intermediaries? And only because of the oath, that's why Paro allows him, and he says, "Go and bury your father as he made you swear." The commentators have different explanations of this. Maybe because Yosef was in mourning, so he couldn't come to Paro as usual. Maybe it's a sign of decline in Yosef's status. Signs of the upcoming enslavement are beginning to emerge. Another explanation is possible. Precisely because Yosef is number 2 in Mitzrayim, it's very strange. Why aren't you burying your father here? Hey, you guys, you're Egyptians already. Why do you have to take your father to burial somewhere else? So Yaakov, or maybe Yosef, make a plan in advance so that the Egyptians, first of all, Paro, will agree to his being buried, to taking Yaakov to be buried in Eretz Canaan. And that's why they make this whole process, and Yosef does it in this kind of strange way of asking for permission because his father made him swear, and so on. In the core of this, Yosef is ensuring that Yaakov will indeed be buried in Eretz Yisrael to make sure that Bnei Yisrael do not become permanently stuck in Mitzrayim, but remain with a clear direction to return to Eretz Yisrael. The same thing Yosef does when he's about to die in the last psukim of B'reishit. He makes his brothers swear that in the future, when Hashem redeems them from Mitzrayim, they will bring his body, return it to burial in Eretz Yisrael. On the one hand, Yosef is doing the same thing as Yaakov. On the other hand, he's doing something very different from Yaakov. Why doesn't he say, "Take me now to be buried in Eretz Yisrael"? Maybe that is because of one reason, two sides, but basically one reason. First of all, Yosef is second in command. He should really be in Mitzrayim and not be taken back to Eretz Yisrael. On the other hand, Yaakov had Yosef, who was the second in command in Mitzrayim, to take him for burial in Eretz Yisrael. Yosef doesn't have a Yosef to take him for burial in Eretz Yisrael. So Yosef remains in Mitzrayim, but the last pasuk in Sefer Shmot says, "And Yosef died, and they emballed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mitzrayim." It does not say that Yosef was buried in Mitzrayim. He's put in a coffin, maybe to make sure that he's in a coffin ready to go when he can. Maybe to make sure he's not buried in one of these pyramids and it will be difficult to get him out. There can be different reasons for the exact reason why he's put in a coffin, different explanations. There's even an Agadah in one of the Midrashim that after his death, Yosef put himself into the coffin. The idea of this Agadah is to say that Yosef is making sure that everything will be ready. When it's time to be returned to Eretz Yisrael, he will be ready to be returned to Eretz Yisrael. So the answer to the question we began with, where are Bnei Yisrael, the children of Yaakov, at the completion of Sefer B'reishit? The answer is, on the one hand, Sefer B'reishit ends in Mitzrayim, and it's preparing us for the enslavement in Mitzrayim, which we will meet immediately in Sefer Shmot. At the same time, it makes clear that although Bnei Yisrael are physically in Mitzrayim, on a deeper level, their orientation is already turned towards returning to Eretz Yisrael. And so it is in every generation. Of course, it's far better and more fitting to come and live in Eretz Yisrael as early as possible, to be part of the gathering of exiles in life, and not just to leave it to future generations to bring the dead back to Eretz Yisrael. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov. How fortunate are we that we have merited this. Shabbat Shalom.